This time of year in the Northern Hemisphere, we are turning toward the harvest. The first harvest has already occurred, and the final harvest will come around the autumnal equinox. In the old myth that we constellated our lives around, this was the time where the Grain King was preparing to make the ultimate sacrifice, and where the whole community would come around in worship and praise and gratitude and emulation for the sacrifice he was willing to make for the people. There was also this understanding that he was going home to the goddess at the time of his sacrifice, that his body would return to the earth herself, to the Great Mother, and then return the next season as grain. So his willingness to sacrifice for the people was the way that he ensured the fertility of the land to feed the people. This myth continues in Christianity through the sacrifice of the Son of God, or the Sun King, and his feeding the people through the transfiguration of his body in communion. So even when the heathen and pagan stories of the Grain King were Romanized and Christianized, that central mythic archetype remained. But that the center isn't holding anymore. The virtues and values of the sacrificial king are not holding. Instead, we have the sort of dominion of the Wendigo, or the Wetiko, and the Algonquin word for this devouring, cannibalistic, colonizing spirit, which has gobbled up the grain created by this archetypal mythic history of the Grain King and his virtue. The colonizer spirit has gobbled up all that grain, and now he sits on top of a rotting pile of carcasses and looks out over his dominion. That is the legacy of hierarchy. That is the legacy of patriarchy. The overfed cannibal sitting on his pile of carcasses looking out over the destruction and feeling like he won, but still never satisfied, never done eating, never fulfills his hunger, ever. And that is the myth we're currently living in. The myth of the fall of the Grain King into the cavernous stomach of the Wendigo. And without a shift in consciousness, that will be the end of our story. We will go back to the earth, as we've always done, as fertilizer for the next thing, but we will have lost the plot as a species and devoured ourselves like the Ouroboros. The collective consciousness of our species is working, laboring to birth a new myth, and you are part of it, whether you realize it or not. To understand how this myth is laboring to come to consciousness, pay close attention to your dreams and the symbols that are drawing your attention. In my dreams lately, I've been going back down to earth, climbing precarious steps or lowering myself carefully back down to the ground. And then when I get to the ground, I'm sitting there in crossed legs, and a woman comes and embraces me. You made it, you made it. So it's like the myth that's alive in my subconscious right now is about getting ourselves off of that pile of debris and coming back to the vital force, coming back to the ground of life, which is where everything comes from, and the place where we're all equal. And then from that place of equality and interconnectedness, we can build things, we can climb, we can ascend, and then come back, and ascend, and then come back. And then our lives become a rhythmic expression of the life force itself, not a cannibalistic dominator of life that eventually leads to our own destruction.